Yobelim, Jubilees, chapter 7. And in the 7th week in the 1st year, in this Yobel, Noah planted vines on the mountain on which the ark had rested, named Lubar, one of the mountains of Ararat. And they produced fruit in the 4th year, and he guarded their fruit and gathered it in this year in the 7th month. And he made wine from them and put it into a vessel and kept it until the 5th year, until the 1st day on the new moon of the 1st month. And he celebrated with joy the day of this festival, and he made a burnt offering to Yahweh, 1 young bull and 1 ram and 7 sheep, each a year old, and a young goat, that he might make atonement thereby for himself and his sons. And he prepared the young goat first, and placed some of its blood on the flesh that was on the altar which he had made, and all the fat he laid on the altar where he made the burnt offering, and the bull and the ram and the sheep, and he arranged all their flesh on the altar. And he placed all their offerings mixed with oil on it, and afterwards he sprinkled wine on the fire which he had previously made on the altar, and he placed incense on the altar, and caused a sweet fragrance to ascend, acceptable before Yahweh his Elohim. And he rejoiced and drank of this wine, he and his children, with joy. And it was evening, and he went into his tent, and being drunk he lay down and slept, and was uncovered in his tent as he slept. And Ham saw Noah his father naked, and went out and told his 2 brothers outside. And Shem took his garment and arose, he and Japheth, and they placed the garment on their shoulders, and went backward, and covered the shame of their father, and their faces were backward. And Noah awoke from his sleep, and knew all that his younger son had done to him, and he cursed his son, and said, "Cursed be Canaan, let him become a servant of servants to his brothers." And he berakah Shem, and said, "Baruch be Yahweh Elohim of Shem, and let Canaan become his servant. Let Elohim enlarge Japheth, and let Elohim dwell in the dwelling of Shem, and let Canaan become his servant." And Ham knew that his father had cursed his younger son, and he was displeased that he had cursed his son, and he parted from his father, he and his sons with him, Cush and Mitzrayim, and Put and Canaan. And he built a city, and called its name after the name of his wife, Ne'elatamuk. And Japheth saw it, and became envious of his brother, and he too built a city, and he called its name after the name of his wife, Adatanesis. And Shem dwelt with his father Noah, and he built a city close to his father on the mountain, and he too called its name after the name of his wife, Zedeketelabab. And see, these 3 cities are near Mount Lubar, Zedeketelabab before the mountain on its east, and Ne'elatamuk on the south, Adatanesis towards the west. And these are the sons of Shem, Elam, and Ashur, and Arpachshad. This son was born 2 years after the flood, and Lud and Aram. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, and Magog, and Madai, and Yawan, Tuval, and Meshech, and Tiras. These are the sons of Noah. And in the 28th Yobel, Noah began to command his sons' sons the laws and commands, and all the right rulings that he knew. And he urged his sons to observe righteousness, and to cover the shame of their flesh, and to berakah their Creator, and honor father and mother, and love their neighbor, and guard their beings from whoring and uncleanness and all wickedness. For owing to these 3 matters the flood came upon the earth, namely, due to the whoring by which the watchers, against the Torah of their laws, went whoring after the daughters of men, and took wives for themselves of all they chose, and they made the beginning of uncleanness. And they brought forth sons, the Nephilim, but they were all evil, and they devoured one another. And the giants slew the Nephil, and the Nephil slew the Elio, and the Elio mankind, and one another. And everyone sold himself to work wickedness, and to shed much blood, and the earth was filled with wickedness. And after this they sinned against the beasts and birds, and all that moves and walks on the earth. And much blood was shed on the earth, and every inclination and desire of men planned worthlessness and evil continually. And Yahweh destroyed all from off the face of the earth, because of the wickedness of their deeds, and because of the blood which they had shed in the midst of the earth. he destroyed all. And we were left, you and I, my sons, and all that entered with us into the ark. And look, I see your works before me, that you do not walk in righteousness, for you have begun to walk in the path of destruction, and you are parting from one another, and are envious of one another. And so it is that you are not in unity, my sons, each with his brother. For I look and see the demons have begun their enticements against you and against your children. And now I fear on your behalf that after my death you shall shed the blood of men upon the earth, and that you shall also be destroyed from the face of the earth. For whoever sheds man's blood, and whoever eats the blood of any flesh, shall all be destroyed from the earth. And there shall not be left any man that eats blood, or that sheds the blood of man on the earth, nor shall there be left to him any seed or descendants living under the Shamayim. For they shall go into the grave, and they shall descend into the place of condemnation, and they shall all be removed into the darkness of the deep by a violent death. No blood is to be seen upon you. Of all the blood there shall be, all the days in which you have killed any beasts or cattle or whatever flies upon the earth, and you perform a good work toward your beings by covering that which has been shed on the face of the earth. And you shall not be like him who eats with blood, but guard yourselves that none may eat flesh before you cover the blood. For thus have I been commanded to witness to you and your children, together with all flesh. And do not allow the life to be eaten with the flesh, that your blood, which is your life, may not be required at the hand of any flesh that sheds it on the earth. For the earth shall not be clean from the blood which has been shed upon it. For only through the blood of him that shed it shall the earth be purified throughout all its generations. And now, my children, listen, work right ruling and righteousness, that you may be planted in righteousness over the face of the whole earth, and your esteem lifted up before my Elohim, who saved me from the waters of the flood. And see, you shall go and build for yourselves cities, and plant in them all the plants that are upon the earth, and also all fruit-bearing trees. For 3 years the fruit of all that is eaten shall not be gathered, and in the 4th year its fruit shall be reckoned Kodesh, acceptable before the Most High El, who created the Shamayim and earth and all matters. Let them offer in abundance the first of the wine and oil as first fruits on the altar of Yahweh, who receives it, and what is left let the servants of the house of Yahweh eat before the altar which receives it. And in the 5th year you perform the release, so that you release it in righteousness and uprightness, and you shall be righteous, and all that you plant shall prosper. For so Hanoch, the father of your father, commanded Methuselah his son, and Methuselah his son Lamech, and Lamech commanded me all the matters which his fathers commanded him. And I also shall give you command, my sons, as Hanoch commanded his son in the first Yobelim. While still living, the 7th in his generation, he commanded and witnessed to his son and to his son's sons until the day of his death. Yobelim, Jubilees, chapter 8. In the 29th Yobel, in the 1st week, in the beginning of it, Arpachshad took a wife, and her name was Rasuiah, the daughter of Elam, and she bore him a son in the 3rd year in this week, and he called his name Cainam. And the son grew, and his father taught him writing, and he went to seek a place where he might seize a city. And he found a writing which former generations had carved on the rock, and he read what was on it, and he transcribed it, and sinned in regard to it, for it contained the teaching of the watchers in accordance with which they used to observe the signs of the sun and moon and stars and all the signs of the Shamayim. And he wrote it down, but said naught regarding it, for he was afraid to speak to Noah about it, lest he should be wroth with him because of it. And in the 30th Yovel, in the 2nd week, in the 1st year, he took a wife, and her name was Milcah, the daughter of Madai, the son of Japheth. And in the 4th year he brought forth a son, and called his name Shelach, for he said, Truly I have been sent. And Shalach grew up and took a wife, and her name was Muach, the daughter of Kesed, his father's brother, in the 31st Yobel, in the 5th week, in the 1st year. And she bore him a son in the 5th year, and he called his name Eber. And he took a wife for himself, and her name was Azurah, the daughter of Nebrod, in the 32nd Yobel, in the 7th week, in the 3rd year. And in the 6th year she bore him a son, and he called his name Peleg. For in the days when he was born, the children of Noach began to divide the earth among themselves. For this reason he called his name Peleg. And they divided it secretly among themselves and told it to Noach. And it came to be in the beginning of the 33rd Yobel that they divided the earth into 3 parts, for Shem and Ham and Japheth, according to the inheritance of each, in the 1st year, in the 1st week, when one of us who had been sent was with them. And he called his sons, and they came near to him, they and their children, and he divided the earth into the lots, which his 3 sons were to take in possession. And they reached out their hands, and took the writing out of the bosom of Noach their father. And there came forth on the writing as Shem's lot the middle of the earth, which he should take as an inheritance for himself and for his sons for the generations forever. From the middle of the mountain range of Rapha, from the mouth of the water, from the river Tina. And his portion goes towards the west through the midst of this river, and it extends till it reaches the water of the abysses, out of which this river goes forth and pours its waters into the sea Meat. And this river flows into the great sea. And all that is towards the north is Japheth's, and all that is towards the south belongs to Shem. And it extends till it reaches Karaso. This is in the bottom of the tongue which looks towards the south. And his portion extends along the great sea, and it extends in a straight line till it reaches the west of the tongue which looks towards the south. For this sea is named the tongue of the Mitzrite Sea. And it turns from here towards the south, towards the mouth of the great sea, on the shore of its waters. And it extends to the west to Afra, and it extends till it reaches the waters of the river Gihon, and to the south of the waters of Gihon, to the banks of this river. And it extends towards the east, till it reaches the garden of Eden, to the south from there, and from the east of the whole land of Eden, and of the whole east, it turns to the east, and proceeds till it reaches the east of the mountain named Rapha, and it descends to the bank of the mouth of the river Tina. This portion came forth by lot for Shem and his sons, that they should possess it forever unto his generations forever. And Noach rejoiced that this portion came forth for Shem and for his sons, and he remembered all that he had spoken with his mouth in Nevuah, for he had said, Baruch be Yahweh, Elohim of Shem, and let Yahweh dwell in the dwelling of Shem. And he knew that the Garden of Eden is the most Kodesh place, and the dwelling of Yahweh, and Mount Sinai, the center of the desert, and Mount Zion, the center of the navel of the earth. These 3 were created as Kodesh places facing each other. And he barach the Elohim of mighty ones, who had put the word of Yahweh into his mouth, and Yahweh the everlasting. And he knew that a Baruch portion and a berakah had come to Shem and his sons to the generations forever, the whole land of Eden, and the whole land of the Sea of Reeds, and the whole land of the east, and Hodu, and on the Sea of Reeds, and the mountains thereof, and all the land of Bashan, and all the land of Lebanon, and the islands of Caphtor, and all the mountains of Senir and Amana, and the mountains of Ashur in the north, and all the land of Elam, Ashur, and Babel, and Shushan, and Madai, and all the mountains of Ararat, and all the region beyond the sea, which is beyond the mountains of Ashur towards the north, a Baruch and spacious land, and all that is in it is very good. And for Ham came forth the second portion beyond the Gihon, towards the south to the right of the garden, and it extends towards the south, and it extends to all the mountains of fire, and it extends towards the west to the sea of Etel, and it extends towards the west till it reaches the sea of Maoch, that sea into which all which is not destroyed descends. and it extends towards the north to the limits of Gadir, and it extends to the coast of the waters of the sea, to the waters of the great sea, till it draws near to the river Gihon, and passes along the river Gihon till it reaches the right of the garden of Eden. And this is the land which came forth for Ham as the portion which he was to occupy forever, he and his sons to their generations forever. And for Japheth came forth the third portion beyond the river Tina, to the north of the outflow of its waters, and it extends northeasterly to the whole region of Gog, and to all the country east of there. And it extends northerly to the north, and it extends to the mountains of Kelt towards the north, and towards the sea of Maok, and it extends to the east of Gadir, as far as the region of the waters of the sea. And it extends until it approaches the west of Farah, and it returns towards Apharag, and it extends easterly to the waters of the sea of Maat. And it extends to the region of the river Tina in a northeasterly direction until it approaches the boundary of its waters towards the mountain of Rapha, and it turns round towards the north. This is the land which came forth for Japheth and his sons as the portion of their inheritance, which he should possess for himself and his sons to their generations forever, 5 great islands and a great land in the north. But it is cold, and the land of Ham is hot, and the land of Shem is neither hot nor cold, but it is mixed of cold and heat. Yobelim, Jubilees, chapter 9. And Ham divided among his sons, and the first portion came forth to Cush towards the east, and to the west of him for Mitzrayim, and to the west of him for Put, and to the west of him on the sea for Canaan. And Shem also divided among his sons, and the first portion came forth for Elam and his sons, to the east of the river Tigris, till it approaches the east, the whole land of Hodu, and on the sea of reeds on its coast, and the waters of Dedan, and all the mountains of Mevri and Elah, and all the land of Shushan, and all that is on the side of Farnach, to the sea of reeds and the river Tina. And for Asher came forth the second portion, all the land of Asher, and Nineveh, and Shinar, and to the border of Hodu, and it ascends and surrounds the river. And for Apakshad came forth the third portion, all the land of the region of the Kasdim to the east of the Parath, bordering on the sea of reeds, and all the waters of the desert close to the tongue of the sea which looks towards Mitzrayim, all the land of Lebanon and Sanir and Armana to the border of the Parath. And for Aram there came forth the fourth portion, all the land of Aram Naharim, between the Tigris and the Parath, to the north of the Kasdim, to the border of the mountains of Asher and the land of Ararah. And there came forth for Lud the fifth portion, the mountains of Asher, and all belonging to them, till it reaches the great sea, until it reaches the east of Asher his brother. And Japheth also divided the land of his inheritance among his sons. And the first portion came forth for Gomer, to the east from the north side to the river Tina, and in the north there came forth for Magog, all the inner portions of the north until it reaches to the sea of Maat. And for Madai came forth as his portion, that he should possess from the west of his 2 brothers to the islands and to the coasts of the islands. And for Yawan came forth the fourth portion, every island and the islands which are towards the border of Lud. And for Tubal there came forth the fifth portion, in the midst of the tongue which approaches towards the border of the portion of Lud, to the second tongue, to the region beyond the second tongue, to the third tongue. And for Meshech came forth the sixth portion, all the region beyond the third tongue, till it approaches the east of Gadir. And for Tiras there came forth the seventh portion, 4 great islands in the midst of the sea, which reach to the portion of Ham. And thus the sons of Noach divided to their sons in the presence of Noach their father, and he bound them all by an oath, proclaiming a curse on every one that sought to seize the portion which had not fallen to him by his lot. And they all said, "So be it, so be it." for themselves and their sons forever throughout their generations, till the day of judgment, on which Yahweh Elohim shall judge them with sword and with fire, for all the unclean wickedness of their strains, with which they have filled the earth with transgression and uncleanness and whoring and sin.